this is sort of an introduction to this video. This preposterously long video. With hopefully the minimum you get out of it, it'll have improved audio, but I sacrificed an awful lot of time, to do that, because I fixed the audio, but then I couldn't combine the elements that had the fixed audio, and I had to change I had to re-render them into a new format, and blah blah blah. Let me see if I better see if it plays, because I don't even know if I've successfully gotten around this dilemma yet. So I'll find out now. Let's see, let's play one of these pieces and see if it actually plays, and then we'll know it works. Maybe. Yeah, that has audio. Okay. I think I'm okay now. Alright. So, alright, so the video, Pyrrho was going to, he was doing the Hostler Day thing. Let's I'll go through this. So he didn't go through it at all, didn't read any of it, and he just got hung on silly stuff, and then ended up doing the two-slit experiment, which is a completely different document. So he ignored all this magnetism stuff, ignored the gravity stuff, and got hung on stupid crap here about photons. And he didn't like the way I described polarization, and he didn't think light travels generally in a straight line, and so he just gave me more crap about how space is bent and everything's in a frame of reference and it's all bending space all the time, and therefore there is no straight line, and blah blah blah. And it was just, so he just kept arguing his Jeebus and just totally ignored the substance of this argument, which is this, unlike your theory, this theory is unifiable and yours isn't. That's a pretty big advantage I have over your theory. Certainly I totally ignored this part where I pleaded for you to suspend your religion, and indulge this. But there's no point. I mean, you're not going to be able to understand it if you're not willing to listen to it. And he just didn't want to listen to it and just started hanging on silly notions. Like I said, if I just change this word from expressed, so they have a shape expressed as polarization. So if I change this shape to a form, that would have been okay. And half an hour of his video would have been unnecessary. I don't even know what the meaning of the argument was. I mean, the idea of polarization, that it creates something that can be filtered, is the entire argument here. I use the word filtering all over the place in here. It's about filtering photons. I did realize, I didn't read it, but I mean, I did realize that in my video I did use Feynman's name in the preamble, I believe, right? Let's see, it needs to return to post-Newton. Yeah, that's the one. I mean, not Feynman, but Newton. So I did say post-Newton, pre-Einstein. So I'm just saying that there was a certain knowledge base, clearly, but I used the word knowledge base. I have it hyphenated now in the new one. But anyway, I'm clearly not saying you can't improve on Newton. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm not saying, I'm certainly saying Einstein's E equals mc squared is really good, but yeah, the relativity theories are really bad, and the bent space thing is just a bad idea, conceptually vacant, where this fills that void, creates the convergence that creates gravity, and explains magnetism, and explains photons in a much more rational way. So, but whatever. Like I said, there's no point in me re-arguing how this is the truth, because you'll find out eventually, because it is, and it's going to win the day because it's just too rational. It makes too much fucking sense. This explains the mechanisms. And again, if you would have read the inertia document instead of the two-slitted document, you'd even get that better. But the good news is, look, if you want to see Pyrrho fail to defend the two-slit, then endure this tediously long video, and you will see him preposterously and catastrophically fail to make a rational defense of his two-slit means something argument. And I will, of course, point out how obvious a fraud the two-slit experiment is, and all this mystery that was built up for all these years over why, is not that complicated to explain. So anyway. I mean, it's just as easy as me putting my finger right there and saying, guess what, I can't see the lens no more. It's that obvious. So anyway, just giving you a fair warning, it's an awful long video and his content is absolute shit. He doesn't argue a kinetic theory of gravity. He doesn't argue he doesn't argue a particle theory of light. He just reiterates that we physicists say, and that's about all he does. No evidence for his conclusions. No evidence, no argument explaining how this can't be right. Nothing. Except that Jesus is in the way. Jesus is sitting in the chair, so therefore nothing else can sit in the chair. You know. So that's the extent of his proof. Can't use the chair because Jesus is sitting in it. All right. So, yeah, that's all. That's enough of a. Gee, I'm disappointed. Well, so fucking what? Yeah, life is disappointing, shithead. So I will continue to endeavor to persevere in spite of these assholes, and I'll do my job, and I think I've done a good job, and you know, I'll see this through. The great thing about this is that it gets rid of all this woo. I mean, this really does spell it out for you, man. This is a bleak universe we exist in. You know, I mean, it's really made out of shit. A simple, stupid shit. Anyway, till next time. Alright, making a video. Try to increase the volume on the videos. I don't know, people have been bitching. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Seems like a lot of trouble. We'll see. See how well the software does it. But yeah, with what efficiency, blah blah blah. Anyway, Pyrrho. Emendum natural philosophy. Well, I hate this. You know, again, more of this pigeonholing. He thinks philosophy is some abstract concept that you can do in some way that's natural or unnatural. No, and science isn't philosophy in that sense anyway. It's just describing the truth. I mean, you either can create an accurate description of reality, you can make accurate statements about reality, or you can make inaccurate ones. But doesn't matter where you got it from, doesn't matter how you acquire the statement, how you construct it, it just matters whether it's correct. And part of correctness has to do with it has to fit with what everybody's established as correct. So it's like we've established that it's correct that the Earth isn't flat, and you know, a few of the things we have established in physics even that are just way beyond argument anymore. And then there's a whole pile of crap that isn't beyond argument. And that's the point of this. Is they've jumped on a bunch of crap, made it, put it in their model, called it the truth, and they made a mistake. Photons aren't waves, and space doesn't fucking bend. Anyway. So, okay, he premises this video with some jibber-jabber about the fact that I've blocked him a couple of times in human history. And I blocked him because he was an asshole in the comment section. That's what you get blocked for usually. And, you know, I've had embargoes. I've blocked people for lots of reasons. And who cares? What does that have to do with this video? Oh, that's right, nothing. This subject, nothing. Absolutely nothing. But he claims that the argument was over some claim I made that the speed of light, something moved faster than the speed of light. Never happened. So it's a lie. So we've had arguments about the mechanism of redshift, and I've always argued that redshift isn't created in space getting bigger. And I guess I might have argued that that's implying something's faster than the speed of light, if it's covering more distance in the same amount of time, then I guess you're the one making the faster argument than not me. But whatever. So here, I haven't played this yet, so apparently it's all going to go to hell here somewhere very shortly. So this is somewhere close, I think, to the part where it goes to hell very shortly. So I guess all I'm going to do in this video is catch the parts where there's no way you read the document, or what, you don't understand stuff in bold type or something. There has to be some reason you're saying the shit you're saying, because it's stupid. It's incredulous. Beyond credulity. You can pretend to be stupid, but I'm not fooled. So you're just full of shit is what you are. Anyway, here we go.
Generations, it would inevitably be bound to be, and anybody could take part in that. But it's hard to figure out where Gary's, what he's trying to get at.
Okay, so it's hard to figure out what Gary's trying to get at. I mean, like I said, are we already in trouble here? I mean, Gary's gotten at it pretty clear. Gary's pointed out that this idea of a wave going through space sounds like bullshit. The idea of bending space sounds like a contrivance. Dark matter, oh, it's an obvious contrivance. I mean, where I'm coming from here is this is all bullshit to keep a silly theory, to make it work. It doesn't work. You keep talking about how it's the most proven theory in the history of mankind. Well, it's proven because you just keep inventing bullshit to keep it running. But it's not running on its own. It's running on bullshit. Anyway, I mean, really, the history of my dissatisfaction with these silly answers to the most profound questions almost you can ask in physics, I don't think there's any mystery about that.
So I read these pages of his, and the whole claim that his system is somehow Newtonian to me is like...
Again, where did I claim it was Newtonian? Where'd you get this claim from? Newton's name is not even in the document. It's not even in my videos. I couldn't give a shit. I mean, I thought Newton was a lot smarter than you assholes, but beyond that, where did I say this has something to do with Newton? Newton was presented with Lesage gravity. He liked it, and then, whatever, 10 years later, nah, not so much. And he had a fight with the guy and blah, blah, blah. Who knows what the story is there? But that's all. That's the only relevance Newton has to this conversation. Newton didn't know what a fucking goddamn photon was. He didn't know what atoms were, for fuck's sake. What is this? This is the eyes you looked at this document with, that somehow I am saying I'm going to carry Newton's torch? Where did I say that? But there's nothing inconsistent with Newton, certainly. Certainly. Newton called, well, it doesn't matter. But let's go ahead. I mean, I'm certainly going to use a lot of Newton's mechanics. I mean, fuck what Newton did with glass and lenses. The two-slit experiment is in Newton's analysis of lenses, for fuck's sake. That's another argument I'm going to be making. But anyway, continue.
That I don't get at all. To me,
well, you don't get it because it's number one, it didn't come out of my mouth. Where's the quote again? So again, another fake paraphrase. So you start your video by saying I made some argument that light travels faster than the speed of light. Never made that argument. And now you're just lying about what I'm claiming. Somehow I'm claiming this is Newtonian mechanics. No. What did fucking Newton know about the idea of a quanton? What did he know about that? Nothing. Did he ever use the word? No. So why are you lying about me? Oh, because it's convenient to making your fake counter-argument.
It's like an alternate quantum physics. It's weird in its own right. It's nothing like Newtonian.
Whatever. Yes, it's nothing like Newtonian, whatever that means in a sense. But again, it is like Newtonian in the sense that it's got conservative rules. It's got inverse square rules. It's got lots of Newtonian rules.
Atoms. I mean, there was hope that a little tiny atom of gold was basically just, you know, the smallest piece of gold. And it looked like, if you could look at it, it would look like a little tiny piece of gold. But anyway, whatever.
I mean, how do you know it doesn't? Yeah. How many little pieces of gold does it take before it looks like a little piece of gold?
All right, so I was thinking of reading this whole thing, and I can do that, but let's jump down to...
I mean, it's really about the color of the light reflecting off of it, right? So, yes, you'll get gold light reflecting off a gold atom, probably, so it'll look like gold.
A bulleted list here, just to start off, because, oh, and by the way...
A little round piece of gold, right? You're only going to get one photon of reflection. Well, a few, 2 or 3. I wish you would make regular videos. I mean, this stupid live streaming everything is just so irritating. I mean, there's really no point. I mean, I should just put the camera still and just play the audio.
I have disagreements, or rather errors I could point out also.
Oh, nice try. No, there are no errors. Sorry. Nice try, but they aren't there, liar. So go ahead. I can't wait to get to those.
For the days. Responses. Which to me is interesting, that they both are antipodally mistaken.
Well, it says you again, arrogant fuck.
In different ways.
Yeah, whatever, arrogant fuck. Arrogant fuck, that's what you are. You're just an arrogant fuck. You've never demonstrated any of this crap that you spew. And I just hope you get to the lensing argument. That's the one I hope you get to that one. That's not in this document, though.
But Gary's are much, much more severe.
Yeah,
and
like
in fact, Hyphelidase might just be a matter of semantics, you know, when you're answering one person's argument.
Okay, well, at least that's what I wanted, okay? That's all I wanted was for you to validate Hyphelidase's response as being something in the realm of reasonable. All right? So, and you've done it, all right? Now, have it for posterity. I'll save the video. And, you know, when anybody ever asks me in the future why I think you are a fucking weasel's ass, this will be the reason why I'll say, go watch this video.
And, you know, Gary's, you might make a statement in the context of that sounds wrong in a...
whatever. I played like 20 seconds of one of his response videos, and he's rolling ball bearings in a box, as if that has something to do with the gazillions of little kinetic reactions happening on the very tip of my fingernail. And if he at least would have put like a little plastic checkers, 2 little plastic checkers in the middle while he's doing his little rolly thing, and watch the 2 checkers crash into each other, even in a system with nowhere close to the density of the system I'm talking about. It would still work in his. It just wouldn't work as good, but it would work. And he couldn't even do that right. But anyway, continuing.
You know, out of context. I certainly have not been able, or wanted, or whatever the word would be, to watch all of Gary's videos that Hyphelidase happens to be responding to.
Yeah, and again, that's another statement that just says it all for me. Like I said, if you had proposed that you had a theory of everything, and it completely would be turning Einstein upside down, it was just so amazingly, you know, it's the holy grail of fucking physics, I'd watch your videos. So that says something about our characters, right? You know, who's the sincere person and who's not? You know, I can't even believe I could be sitting here saying, oh yeah, I know this guy from YouTube for years and years and years, and that's how much courtesy I'm going to give him. I won't even watch his videos, and then I'll critique his content, and I'll validate some buffoon, some stupid, ignorant, lying gorilla. Look, I'm just saying this to these assholes who keep saying, "Oh, Peter's alright." No, he's not alright.
Whereas Icalidae makes videos at a rate, and my appreciation of him is such, slash whichever in both, half of one, dozen of the other. I do watch his videos.
Right. So I guess that's the statement, right? I mean, I don't have to say much more than that, right? You'll watch his hour video. One of them's an hour and a half long. You watch that, but you won't watch my video. Oh, I get it. The guy with the proposal, you won't watch his video, but you'll watch some asshole fuck it up, not even read it correctly. That's entertainment. Okay.
On the other hand, I've watched many of Gary's science videos, including in this new series.
Yeah, bullshit. You know, when Pyrrho says he's watched something, it means he's watched 2 minutes of it, and then he made up the rest. That's what Pyrrho means by I watched.
Gary, and talked to him live about it, and found it incomprehensible, basically.
Okay, so, you know, this is, so that's enough of an argument right there, right? He can't comprehend that Einstein's proposing a convergence created by making a hole, bending space, and having stuff fall down a hill. And I'm arguing he can't understand this. No, there's actually energy in the universe, pressure, and the pressure pushes things. And it's exactly the same convergence, obviously, but that's where the energy comes from. The energy comes from things, not from nothing. It comes from something, not from nothing. And I guess he doesn't understand the argument that it's kind of a real fraud in science to actually use the force you're supposed to be explaining in your model. I mean, that's kind of a bogus model, right? If your model of gravity needs gravity to work, oh, that's kind of a bogus model.
So this written version does help me comprehend it. But that simply means that the errors are,
All right, okay, cool. Let's get to those. They're apparent errors. Oh, right, let's get to those. I just don't imagine how you could understand the errors when, frankly, there's nothing of your bullshit physics in here. So there's no bullshit physics for you to say, I got some of their bullshit physics wrong. No, I didn't. So anyway, let's go ahead. I mean, I don't need any bullshit physics to describe physics. That's the neat thing about this. I can go all the way back to Newton and catch up on all the pieces, and I don't need any of this Einstein-on shit. None of it's relevant.
We'll see if we can discuss these, and adjustments could be made. Again,
I don't need to make any adjustments. I was careful about how I wrote it, and you're not going to find any errors in it. Significant errors. There's one in the magnetism. There's one tiny little error where I said in the graphic that there's a zero pressure between the... No, it's not really zero. It's just less pressure. But that's the only error. But you won't even understand that error, so there's no point in worrying about that one, because you didn't see that one.
Of it could be semantic.
Well, whatever. Yeah, it could be semantic. Well, gee, I mean, the error is I used the wrong word. For you, you don't like to use that word. You know, you like to use brick, and I use the word stone. Oh, whatever.
Or it could be in the definitions, the words that we use. Things like his total misapprehension of what I would consider polarity, what polarity really is.
Oh, what polarity really is. Well, again, I don't know. I describe it in my document, and I'm saying, okay, so you're saying it's an error because you have proof that polarity is something else. You know that polarity isn't this, meaning you're in this dimension, or you're in this dimension, or in 3 dimensions. You got to do the other dimension, but I mean that's what it really is. Polarity is straightforwardness. It's a 180-degree dimension. There's 2 sides to a circle: up, top, bottom, forward, back. We're back to the simplest equation here. And those are the dimensions. And polarization is existence in 1 dimension.
it's hard to tell how much of it is a misunderstanding of the phenomena that we already call polarity.
Well, again, I didn't use the word polarity. So I used the word polarization. So polarity is that's just getting yourself into trouble, because that's establishing a standard. I'm just arguing that this, whether it's this or whether it's this, it's just this and the tangent of this. Okay, the 90-degree opposite. I said that in my document. That's the significant element of polarization. That this is fundamentally different than this. Just as this is fundamentally different to that. Okay, it doesn't matter where you draw the floor. It's the vertical is very different than the horizontal. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter where the fucking floor is, retard.
And he's just appropriating a word or...
Whatever. Again, this isn't that complicated. The idea that something goes through the bars and something doesn't go through the bars. I mean, look, it's like a jail cell, right? Does it matter which way the bars are going? No, no, no. It just matters that, yes, your hand will go through the bars this way, but it won't go through the bars this way. Or a frisbee, or a graviton, or whatever you want to call it. That the thing has a shape, and the shape means it has to go through the bars one way. It can't go through the bars the other way. Gee, is that a concept that... Are we to believe, am I as a rational person to believe Pyrrho doesn't understand that conceptually? I don't think so. I don't think that would be reasonable. So this sounds like a load of bullshit coming.
How much... Well, I guess that's basically both sides of it. I mean, how much is he misunderstanding the phenomena that we call polarity already, versus how much is he just taking the term to describe some sort of shape concept in his extremely abstract...
I don't know. Again, I explained polarization in the document, I think, quite clearly, that there's a tangent to this. I don't know. Maybe he needs a picture? I guess he needs a picture? I don't think so, though. I don't think a physicist is going to need a picture.
Physical model. Now, here, what I wanted to start with is, he says, let's list what we really know to be true about photons. Okay, a list of 5 things, see if any of them are actually true. First of all, they generally move from point A to point B in a straight line. No.
Okay, so he's saying photons don't generally do that. Most of the photons in the universe right now aren't moving in a straight line from point A to point B. Oh, okay. Fuck you.
It's already easily demonstrated that...
No, it isn't. Okay, it's easy. So he's telling me I've made an error, and he's going to say it's easily demonstrated that he can bend light, and that light has been bent. Now let's understand, Einstein's lensing experiment has never been repeated as far as I know, even though we now have a Hubble telescope who could do the experiment every fucking day. Once a day. Could do it. Could do it all day long with different stars. I mean, at least once a year it could do the experiment over and over and over again. Why hasn't it been redone? Oh, the reason why it hasn't been redone is because I think they have redone it and they found, shit, we can't find this goddamn lensing to save our fucking butts. Yeah, it's just not there. It doesn't happen. Photons are not bent by gravity. You don't have any evidence whatsoever, any hard evidence of a photon ever being bent by any force, ever. They're bent by electrons, fuckhead. So you're the one who's wrong.
I just curved. Excuse me, curved.
Again, so what's the point, right? So again, I wrote a part in here where I said, look, there's no point in having this conversation if you can't let go of your jeebus for 10 fucking minutes. Right? It's called speaking of shadows. So there's a section on speaking of shadows where I basically just say, look, you know, if you can't let go of your bullshit, I can't help you then, okay? You have to be willing to say, yes, it's possible, this could be another answer. And then you have to have some brain that's capable of using your imagination for a second and saying, okay, yeah, let me go along with this and see if these pieces, these puzzle pieces do form a picture. And that was the expectation here. If you're not willing to open your mind for a second, fuck it. I mean, yeah, there's no point in having a conversation with a fucking like, you know, you can't have an argument with a creationist if they won't let go of their nonsense for a few seconds and give evolution a chance.
By when it's in a gravitational field.
Okay, so he's saying this is established fact, okay? There's no reasonable way you could dispute it. No reasonable person on Earth right now, he's saying, no reasonable person on Earth with any kind of scientific knowledge could possibly doubt the proof of gravitational lensing. It's absolutely proven. That's what he's saying. Inquisition much? Fuck you.
Or another way of putting that, according to Einstein, would be that light is curved.
Oh, don't even use Einstein, like I said, because, like I said, all the evidence of lensing, the only lensing that validates Einstein is with our own sun, and they ain't willing to duplicate that one. So let me see you duplicate the lensing that Einstein suggested was possible, which is lensing on the surface of suns.
When the observer is an accelerated frame.
The observer is, so let me go back to that. How does that have anything to do with fucking lensing? That's the nuttiest thing I ever heard, but anyway.
Or another way of putting that, according to Einstein, would be that light is curved when the observer is an accelerated frame.
Again, this has nothing, light doesn't curve, so again, it's just silly. Okay, clocks can slow down or speed up based on the metabolism of the matter. But there's no bending of any light, so it's nonsense. You can't accelerate. Again, he's bringing up a circumstance that doesn't even exist in any kind of material reality. So obviously this has never been tested because you've never taken matter and moved it 3/4 of the speed of light to do your test. That's the only place where this bending of the light would have where there'd be enough of a bend in the light for you to notice any bending in the light. So again, we're back to the argument about how strong the gravity has to be, and so we're back to the argument about you can only have bent light in super strong gravity. That's why Einstein suggested you may never be able to find it in nature because it would always have to be right next to a sun. Duh.
So that's something to think about. If I'm in an inertial frame.
Right. Again, so he's not arguing my theory. He's just reiterating why he believes what he believes. So what's the point?
Light goes in seems to go in a straight line unless it travels through a non-inertial frame.
Well, I'm saying your frames don't exist. It's part of my theory. So what am I supposed to argue your voodoo? You're saying Jesus had supper with Mary Magdalene, and it was very nice, and they had a romantic evening, and then I'm saying, fuck you. And back. So where were we? This is so irritating. So I could play the clip, right? Feynman lectures. Feynman gets to a point where he says, well, let me just, this is all basic, right? I mean, look, photons travel from point A to point B in a straight line. And then he goes on talking about electrons and photons and how they interact. Whatever. Okay, you just pretend that most photons are doing some kind of bullshit, even though they reliably go billions of light years across space in straight lines. Go ahead. Fuck you.
Okay. But, of course, every bit of mass in the universe creates a non-inertial frame, an accelerated frame, equivalent to an accelerated.
So again, this is what's the point of writing something that's another story? He's just going to keep arguing his story. Okay, so that's what you say. You say that there's make-believe frames around us when we're under velocity. I'm saying quite explicitly in the paper, there's no such frames. All of that's a crock of shit. It doesn't happen. You don't dent the space. You don't do any of that fucking crap. What happens is a bunch of these little bits get inside of you, and now your matter is stretched. And now the orbits aren't as round. There's not the same conservation inside of you. Your orbits are more rectangular. Well, it's not even a rectangle. It's a ball rolling. So I don't know. There's no way to describe the circle that's rolling. But yeah, there's more stuff going this way than there is that way. And that means the thing goes that way. And that's what's happening. But there is no fucking goddamn frame shit. Nothing's under any kind of frame. Fuck.
Right, so in reality, photons are curving through this.
Absolute bullshit, right? The photons aren't doing any of that. The clocks on moving objects are moving. They have a velocity. They don't work as well. Yeah, that's it. There's no, both of us, no matter what our frame is, put a clock outside both of those frames and we'll both see that clock. We're the one that'll be fucked up and we'll goddamn know it. We'll look at that clock that's not fucked up and realize we're fucked up.
Well, let's say in space, far enough away, our squared law, etc., it's going straight enough. Whether it seems to be straight can have to do whether you yourself are in an inertial frame or not.
Again, just this whole paper, right? So you jump to the photon part, just missed the part where I was talking about the basic elements themselves. This is about the elements that are accounting for the convergence. These elements are the things that are creating the illusion of these frames. These frames don't exist. What exists is the field. You have a local field. If something else enters my field, a gravitational body, right? The two fields interact and they become one field around both of those objects, and that's what pushes the things together. But they're not frames, they're fields, and they're made out of real bits, is the argument. Real, discrete quanta of energy.
So you could say in some sense, as we do say, that light tends to travel in a straight line, but in reality it does not travel in a straight line, because when it goes through these gravitational fields...
Again, so then there's no explicit proof of this. You don't have one single hard evidence of any light ever being bent anywhere, so whatever. I mean bent. I mean not refracted. I mean bent. Nothing.
So-called, these are non-inertial frames, and light curves.
Right, okay, so you're just declaring a truth, okay? I'm saying an exact opposite truth, and my evidence for my truth is that I can unify all the forces with my truth. My truth works for gravity and magnetism and light, where your truth doesn't.
This is true. Elsewhere in this paper, he talks about the electromagnetic nature of light, and doesn't seem to understand that you could...
Again, I don't understand. It's just so obnoxious. I wrote it right in here. I'm saying there's nothing in these facts that precludes somebody from just concluding that light is a discrete bit separated by a distance. Every bit of wave behavior you see in reality is being caused by that frequency. Just like when you make waves in water, you do something that has a frequency. You don't, my finger poking the water, no one would call my finger a wave. No one would call the interaction of hitting it a wave. Shit. Photons hit our eye like raindrops. I mean, I hate to use a silly example, but I mean, our machine gun bullets, our That's the way they're coming at a frequency, and that's what makes them identifiable to our chemistry.
Calculate the speed based on the laws of the magnetic and the measured behavior of the.
Measure it again how? The only way you measure a photon, again, this is just such a canard, such a pile of crap that these people, they can measure photons, they can see them. You can't do any of that. The only way you can detect a photon is you have to have it hit an electron, and then if it just hits one electron and you don't do anything about it, you'll never be able to read that because that isn't enough of an impact. So you have to have something that amplifies the effect, that has a chain reaction essentially, that causes more electrons to react and then more electrons to react until you get a big enough signal to even know a photon existed. So all this is such a canard that you people know how many photons go through something, when exactly this photon comes, and that's the same exact photon that left over there because I can tell exactly. You don't have any detectors that can do any of that crap. I mean, this is all just such crap. And so you're using crap like this to say, okay, somehow this isn't a unification theory, that this theory doesn't explain photons, gravity, and magnetism consistently. That's the purpose of this document, by the way. Fuck. But no, just tell me Jesus exists. I saw it. I saw Jesus. Well, I didn't really see him. I saw him in concert. And he sort of walked. Well, he didn't really walk on, but he sort of walked on. Well, all right, it looked like it because the light show was really good. But I saw that. I did. That's all you're doing. I don't give a fuck about your stupid Jeebus concert.
Electric and magnetic fields and the way they interact with each other.
And again, I say right in the document, where's the evidence of a photon doing something magnetic? Where's the evidence of a photon doing something electric? Where? They're made, photons end up being electricity. They end up being, essentially being converted, a type of photon, the gravitons, into magnetism. They aren't doing the thing. They're the thing being produced. They're the beef. They're not the animal.
And how fast they do that interaction and whatnot, and you'll get the speed of light through that calculation. As a matter of fact, the speed of light was both
Oh, this is just so. This is Hothele's idiotic argument. How is this magic? You know the distance, then you know the frequency, and you're saying it's magic that using those things when you have a Planck amount of time. So you have time, distance, and now you're saying it's magical that you came up with the constant when you did the experiment. Of course you'll come up with the constant. I mean, if you have all the variables, you'll be able to detect the constant. Yeah, that's the way it works. They measured how much the Earth weighs by having two balls attract each other, because that gave them the constant. Fuck.
Measured and calculated several different ways in different investigations, not necessarily thought to be related at the time, and the speed came out the same. That's one of the things that was like a revelation.
I don't buy that argument either. I mean, the fact that there was a speed to light, okay, yes, you can understand why Newton wouldn't know there was, but it's not really a huge surprise. It doesn't, I mean, when I found out there's a speed to light, well, that didn't surprise me. Because exactly how could it happen instantaneously anyway?
So one of them's true, one's false so far. 50-50 so far.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck you.
They have a shape expressed as polarization. The polarization is meant to be an origin.
All right, so what's the point, right? I mean, you're not gonna read this as a counter theory to your bullshit. You're just gonna keep telling me what the authorities say. This is what polarization is. You can't tell me what polarization is. Even though you write in here about how it's a gradient, which is a fact, polarizing filters are just lines. Oh, let's just pretend we don't know that. Yeah, we do know that, asshole. I used this as an example in the paper, asshole. Fuck.
Orientation. Now, is that what you mean by shape? Who could know? right?
No, I put it right in the paper. I put in the fact that polarization in light is caused by a gradient. I mean, what, you want me to go back to the paper and read it for you or something? I mean, fuck. Just don't pay any attention to what I wrote. Right. Way to go, Pyrrho. Just don't pay any attention to what was written, right? Just they acquire the frequency occurrence, they are emitted electrons. Okay, it's the one before that. The photons are finely small, frequency, nothing else. Once given permission to see photons, I think maybe it's up here even. Maybe so. It's even before this list. I know it's in here somewhere. Okay, maybe it was down here. Maybe it was in the first paragraph of yeah, what's getting polarized. Okay, so yeah, I explained polarized here. So the agreement, general description of a polarizing filter. In the applicable circumstance of visible light, a polarizing filter would consist of a gradient of lines that can be oriented vertically or horizontally and can filter out different photons based on the orientation of the filter. I mean, fuck, it's right there. Light polarizing filters also convert light in a range of polarization to the specific output polarization, meaning if it comes in this way, it might get pushed this way. Fact. The example is there. So what is this bullshit? Oh, that's right. It's just bullshit. Oh, you just suck. You suck. So you're such a... Again, if I did this to you, I'd be humiliated. That this is the argument I'm giving a guy. I mean, really, fuck you. I'm just taking this as such a fucking insult, you fucking cunt. This is the best you could come up with? You're going to sit there and go to the trouble to make an argument? And this is the kind of crap you're going to use? I'll tell you what polarization is? Even though you've described it in a paragraph in the goddamn fucking paper? Fuck you, cunt.
Let me put it this way, because this is the simplest way to understand, in a physical, geometric sense, the polarization of light. I'm quite sure of that. Now, this example, this example is the most straightforward geometric.
Right. Polaroid. Right. Polaroid sunglasses. We don't know what those are, so let's pretend we don't know that.
Understanding of the polarization of light. When you have a radio antenna, right? Polarization of photons, let's say. When you have a radio antenna, a wire, basically a spike, hard wire, a pole.
Radio waves now he's talking about, right? So now he's talking about the photons produced by radio, which, very much unlike visible light, it's a mass of them all coming at once. Just a huge wall of them. Another wall of them, another wall of them, separated by a huge distance. So where light is nanometers distance wavelength, radio waves can be miles of distance. Yeah, so let's make comparisons.
Straight up and down. What's going on there, how you create radio waves, is you have a magnet at the bottom, an electromagnet that you could turn on and off. When you turn it on, the electrons in that pole shoot down. And if you reverse it, they shoot up. You turn it off, stop moving. Right? So by moving those up and down in the pole, you're wiggling them.
Look, this is like, you can create electrical noise anytime you want. So yeah, you can create these radio photons. If we could see them, it would be really interesting. This, the computer would be oozing, this light, this kind of photon, and so they release fairly easily. You just vibrate the metal at the right speed, and the stuff will fall off. And it's almost like if you vibrate a human being, the same thing will happen. They have cleaning machines that work by vibrating. Okay, they vibrate the water really quick. They get rid of people's bladder stones, by just vibrating them. This has nothing to do with this paper, idiot. And again, I already used the example of polarized filters, light filters. I don't even know if there is such a thing as a polarized radio photon filter. I don't even know if there is such a thing. I don't even know if you can filter radio photons for their polarization. Fuck. I mean, fuck is all you can say, right? I mean, obviously there's a huge difference in terms of what kind of electron is absorbing a radio wave versus absorbing a photon of infrared or ultraviolet light. Shit.
And they are in an electromagnetic field, right? And the magnetic field vector.
All right. So again, why bother? I'm basically the document's saying all the fields are the same field. It's one giant kinetic field of directional information. And I'm pointing out how it works for it unifies all of these things to understand that one field. So there's just no point in you bringing this up like there's some sort of extra thing. Every time you say the word field, you're talking about the field I'm talking about, shithead, from my perspective.
If you could, with your fingers, pull at a certain point the magnetic field up, which you can't actually do by inducing a magnet, but let's say you could pick it with your fingers and pull it up, what would happen is you'd also be pulling up at a right angle the electric field. And these two fields interact, and when you let go, it would shoot down like...
All right, whatever. Again, the electric field, the magnetic field, you're going to talk like they're the same things, and they're not. They induce each other. Okay? They don't exist at the same time. The magnetic field takes time to induce electrical current, and electrical current takes time to induce the magnetic field. They're not instantaneous fields, and they have to be induced in each other. Two different pieces of matter have to induce them through the communication of these fields. You can't use, you can't express the electricity and get electricity. You have to express it into the magnetism and do the conversion to cross the barrier of the atmosphere. That's the translator. It allows you to take it from one form and convert it into another form. So it comes out as magnetic, the field, as polarized, and then it's converted by the matter into current. The current moves. That creates its own magnetic field that goes back to the other thing. But it's all induced. Induction is a fundamental concept here. So there's no parallel fields. Shit.
Like a rubber band, and both of them would shoot down, and then they'd shoot out the opposite way, and they would oscillate back and forth like that, and shoot forward in a direction. And that's what a photon is. So when you wiggle the electrons up and down, you're creating ripples in the electromagnetic field. And the photons shoot...
Yeah, okay, again, so just ignore the purpose of this document. Ignore the fact that it unifies these conditions and just keep preaching your jeebus. Oh, man, it's just so fucking stupid.
Yeah, in a circle, just like a water ripple, away from the antenna, right? And the polarization of the photons is the up and down of the antenna, right? A polarized filter oriented...
Again, go back to the look. I used it in my example. I said, look, we know what polarized light is, okay? It's a gradient to filter. It's quite obvious, okay, that whatever the feature of the photon is, it's basically, if it's one way it can go through the bars, if it's another way it can't get through the bars. And it really doesn't matter how you manifest that. The point is it has a shape. That's the point here. It has a shape that manifests as polarization. That's the statement. I mean, this is just idiotic. The fact that you want to cling to some notion that it's a wave, that's your business. The point is it has to be shaped a certain way to get through the filter. That's the only part of this that matters. It's the only part of this sentence that matters. Fuck.
In the same or 90 degrees of the direction of that antenna's up and down direction will match geometrically in our real space.
I don't even buy this argument that antennas move up and down. I argue they vibrate back and forth, but who cares?
Between the the direction of the polarization filter that happens to be on whatever the detector filter that is detecting the polarized light. And these would be, of course, radio photons. Now, what's so-called random about this situation is which direction...
Situation is a Brett Keenism now. He's talking about random about this situation. What subject are you on? Oh, yeah, that's right. You're on the subject of pyrrho. Oh, it's always about the pyrrho. I just can't tell you how much I think you suck.
Do the photons go? Right? If you're looking down on the antenna is a dot in the middle of a circle looking down, and the ripples are going out in a circle.
The ripples. The frequency of photons. Photons are being emitted at a frequency. It's vibrating, and the vibration is, even though it's quick, it can't go faster than like certain speeds in terms of the vibration. And the very distance that it takes to go from here to vibrate back and then get to here again, that much time, the photons that left have already gone 3 miles. See, so the vibration of the antenna is deciding how far the first bunch of photons went before the second bunch of photons are leaving the antenna. And that's the frequency between the incidences.
Photons are particles. Which direction on that circle of that 360 degrees do the photons take? And that's allegedly random.
Well, there's no such thing as whatever allegedly random in the sense. I mean, what you mean? There's inevitably going to be a circumference, but the intensity is clearly going to be in the 2 directions that it's vibrating fundamentally. Well, not really. But that probably does have something to do with the fact that it's doing it in an oscillating manner. So, but it probably has something to do with the fact that radio waves a little bit suspect sometimes. It starts to break down a little bit because it's not as perfectly symmetrical as it would be helpful for it to be. It would be more useful if it was even more symmetrical.
That's equally distributed. Could be any of those directions. Right? So if probabilism is when, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, but the number 7 is going to come up more than the number 12 with these...
Yeah, well, we do know what's going to happen. Again, this idea that there's something that is truly random, or it doesn't somehow, there's not some inevitability based on its trajectory and what's in front of it and what it's going to end up hitting. So, I mean, probability doesn't mean that there's some sort of magic. It means that there's an arrangement that's sort of rigid. That there's, I could put one black circle on here, and I could say, okay, I'm going to throw things, at all of this surface, and you're going to understand that, if this is 10% of the whole area, that 10% will go in the hole. I mean, fuck.
Nice. And something random, properly random, would be, equal chance of all of the things. Which direction of the 360 degrees each individual photon comes out.
Well, that's dictated by the internal structure of the atom. So again, I don't know why you think atoms are somehow not orbits, and they're already circular, and they already have conservation built into them. They already have 10 things going down, and 10 things going this way, and 10 things going this way, and 10 things going that way. And they can't just give away 10 going this way. They have to give an even proportion of all of them, or they fall apart. So if they're going to give away something, they have to give out a balanced amount of it. So that creates the inevitability that the outcome will be balanced, because each one has to give part of its conservation away. It's giving away a conservative hunk of reality, something that's already been preordained, that it's going to have exactly one head and exactly one tail. It will never, or electrons will never give you two heads, because they can't. Because if they do, they degrade their own function. So they have to. If they gave you a head last time, they're going to have to give you a tail the next time. Fuck.
Unknown. If you make the power so low on that antenna, broadcast antenna, that only one photon comes out of the antenna at a time, you won't be able to predict which direction it's going to go.
And again, there's absolutely no surprise, but there's no way you could do that. So it's silly even to speculate on the idea that you're going to have a vibration so minimal that you're only going to release one photon from the atomic structure. I mean, that's just idiotic, but whatever.
Or control which direction it's going to go.
Again, it's idiotic, but as soon as you let four of them go, you're going to have four of them going in four different directions, because that's the only way the atoms remain atoms, and that's the only way the electrons remain electrons. They have to give away some of this, some of this, some of this, and some of this. If they just give away this, they're not going to be in orbit anymore, and they're going to shoot out somewhere else and lose a whole bunch of photons. They have to give it out in a conservative manner. I mean, you really don't understand. I mean, to preach at me as if, you know, and when you don't even understand this simple concept of why it has to evenly distribute. It doesn't have a choice. Atoms can't give away their conservation. They can't give away their structure. They have to give it away in a balanced manner. If they don't give away balance, then they become unbalanced. You can't understand that? And you're preaching at me, you fucking cunt.
Right. That's theoretically a fundamental principle. Maybe there's a way to do it anyway, but...
Again, so you're just proving your own ignorance. It's totally a mystery to us. Well, I just explained it to you, jackass. So, I guess you're pretty stupid.
The tricks that we know to cause that are more like the way we make a laser. I mean, you basically just don't let the photons that don't cooperate out of the laser. You end up with a bunch of lasers, you know, a bunch of photons shooting in the same direction. And
yeah, well, I think now it works anyway. It's a crystal, so it's going through already a filter, so why even bother with this nonsense? They're pretty filtered coming out of the laser, and all the laser's doing is magnifying the, creating more photons. It's shooting it back in to get four more. Every time you put one back in, you get two back, kind of a thing. It's a multiplying idea.
In phase. And you got a laser. So generally polarization is this kind of thing of like, well, if a photon's coming at you, pretend it's going up and down. Right now it's not. It's staying in its point of space.
Again, so just ignore what the fundamental premises of the paper are and just tell me, no, our God is God. I'm going to explain Jesus to you again. I have a theory of evolution. I'm showing how it all works. I'm showing you how these organisms are related. Photons, gravity, and magnetism. And all you're doing is saying, no, 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 our God is God. You can't see that that's all you're doing here, you fucking creationist? Shit. You're not arguing how what I'm saying can't be. You're just saying what we say is true, damn it. And you have no right to disagree, even if you have a list of what a photon is, and we don't get to color it with our fake two-slit experiment bullshit. Jesus. I mean, it's just so, there's just no point, right? You just can't have the argument because he is so fucking he's got the quantum wave theory so far up his ass, he can't possibly extract it.
It's line, but the magnetic field and electric fields can be visualized.
No, you can't visualize any of this nonsense. The fields around the corpuscle, as Feynman called it. Feynman said it's a particle. No, the fields around the particle, the fields of fieldiness. fuck. No. The fields are around the matter. The matter has fields. The photon does not.
As, you know, vectors at that point. And so this plus shape where the magnetic field is going up and down and electric is going, and they're off the perfect time, so they go through the 0 point at the same time, and this little plus is shooting at you. If the photon's coming to your eye, this little plus is shooting at you. In the middle is the photon, the point itself, and then the magnetic and electric fields oscillating around that point, right? Oscillating around that point, if you can imagine the sine waves and 2 dimensions doing...
No, I can't imagine any of it. It's absolute crap. I've never been able to imagine it. I've never thought it made any motherfucking sense to talk about your silly fucking wavy thing, photon. The smallest thing in the universe is this complicated wavy thing that's waving both ways magnetically, electrically, blah, 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 blah. No, it sounds like a big pile of shit. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying when I gave myself the liberty to say, fuck that crap, let's try to see if there's a better answer. I found the better answer, you fucktard. And it unifies everything, you stupid cunt.
And from coming straight at you, it's oscillating in this little plus, and the angle, the rotation of that plus, that's the polarization, not the shape. Okay.
Well, okay, then go ahead and explain how that works with a gradient. Go ahead, explain to me how that nonsense, okay, somehow fits into, well, if I turn the bars on the jail this way, all of a sudden the photon doesn't get through. So somehow the photon has some sort of polarization, spinny, fieldy bullshit that somehow can tell when I just do this to its bars in front of it. Fuck you.
They are identifiable by a carried frequency. I don't think so. So, I don't know what...
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by identifiable. You mean like red, blue, green, purple, frequencies are different, cosmic rays, radio waves 3 miles frequency, cosmic rays, 2 nanometer frequency. Fuck you.
Carried frequency is, but let's say they have a frequency. A photon has a frequency, right? We know that if you burn copper, you get this green photon, for example, this really beautiful green and blue greens mixed, but it's 2 photons mixed together. But you get this green, among other things, I guess is what I'm saying. However, whether that is real, you know, it's not a green photon for everybody. It's a green photon for...
It's a frequency, shithead. Who cares what color it is? It's a frequency. A period. A wavelength. It's not subject to subjective interpretation. It is what it is. It's 542 nanometers or 542 nanometers. It's not something else, dumbass. It's not subjectively defined. It has an explicit definition. By distance. Stupid fuck.
Observers or phenomena that are in the same rest frame as the emitter. If you are on another planet or galaxy...
Yes, if you're moving towards a stream of photons, that's right, you'll receive them at a different frequency. Exactly my argument. So exactly how are you ever going to do any kind of very fast travel in the universe? Because if you go half the speed of light, all the light you're banging into is going to be turned into X-rays, and they're going to incinerate you. Fucktard.
It's traveling towards something at, you know, a quarter of the speed of...
I mean, look, the statement is, it's just got the fucking frequency, you stupid shit. It's a premise. You can't even get past the premises. for a photon.
Light, that photon would no longer be a green photon. It'd be another color, or maybe one of the invisible colors, so to speak, of other parts of the spectrum. You know, ultraviolets and your infrared. So I don't think you could say they're identifiable, because the wavelength of that photon,
Not
this is a proved thing, I claim, easily testable, really, in the labs and in our experiences, it's easy to look close at the universe these days. You cannot identify them that way. Things have blue and red shift, and so what frequency they carry, and even what amount of energy, is relative to whoever absorbs that energy.
So he's saying the energy of photons is now also variable? No, it's not. They're quanta. They're a specific thing. You put a lot of them together, close together, the energy is exactly proportional. I mean, there's no way you can undo that. The reason why cosmic rays have more energy is because in the same distance of time, okay, there's more of them. And his other argument that the frequency of 400 nanometers is not a real frequency, it's based on what the receiver's doing. No, that frequency exists. It's in the real world. The photons coming from space to my eyes are not changed because my eye is moving, you dumb ass. God, I can't believe he's getting away with an argument like that. Somehow because I'm moving and I received the photon, therefore the photon wasn't 400 nanometers. It was what my eye interpreted it to be because it's moving. That's his argument. My eye decides what the frequency of the light is. Fuck. That was just dumb.
Now this, again, totally wrong. No, look. When emitted from a spherical source, they dissipate at the same rate as gravity and magnetism, obeying the inverse square rule. Yeah, no, photons, you said photons. Look, yeah. The force of gravity and blah, 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 and the intensity of light.
Here's the test for photons. Okay? I say that when I move my hand half the distance, it's going to get 4 times bigger. Watch this. Did you see it happen? Yeah, it happened. Fuck. This guy is so fucking stupid. Yeah, that's all you can say, right? My argument is if you have a laser beam, well, the effect is obviously not the same, right? Because you're not emitting photons in a distribution. So the inverse square rule doesn't work for laser beams. I mean, it works. No, it just doesn't, because there's nothing dissipating theoretically, nothing detracting from the beam's intensity. It can't get 4 times weaker because it's not spread out. So that's why I said emitted from a sphere. What I said is perfectly accurate, and what you're arguing is perfectly nonsense. Yeah, proof.
They dissipate by this R² law. And what it is, basically, is if you have a spherical bubble that is expanding around a point, right, a ripple, a 3D ripple, an explosion underwater where the wave is hard to see. It's easier to see on the surface, right? But there's a compression wave traveling out in a circle.
Right, then it's the inverse square.
Now, the sort of the tectonic shock that bubble has as it passes by you dissipates as the bubble gets bigger, because the bubble's getting thinner, right?
And light does the same thing.
Light That's what happens as far as we know in gravity and magnetism.
And light!
Or any field, any idealized medium. The thing about photons is that they act like a 3D ripple, and the intensity of the photons indeed does dissipate. But an individual photon doesn't dissipate at all. It's permanent. I think Gary knows this, actually, if he's thinking about it.
Well, why would you think I was saying an individual photon dissipates? I said release from a spherical object. I said that clearly. Release from a spherical object, they will degrade in terms of their ability to hit my hand. The number that will hit my hand. Okay, as I go twice the distance away, there's 4 times less hitting my hand here. 4 times less. That's the simple argument in that statement, you fucking retard. God. Damn.
Photon stays the same until it runs into something. The reason it dissipates anyway, apparently, is a statistical phenomena over all the billions of photons being put off of this sort. So let's have an intent.
It's not a statistical phenomena. It's an inevitable, absolute, have-to phenomena. And if this is what you mean by semantics, yeah, you're violating semantics here. What exactly about the way I phrased that sentence could you pervert and fuck up this royally? I mean, this is such absolute fucking nonsense. When emitted from a spherical source, they dissipate at the same rate as gravity and magnetism. So the argument is magnetism happens from a thing with in 3 dimensions. Gravity happens to things in 3 dimensions. When you do the same thing with light in 3 or 2 dimensions, it does the same thing. It dissipates just like magnetism and just like gravity. Fuck! There's nothing controversial about that statement. Nothing controversial about that sentence. You have no right to make this big a mess out of it. It's just outrageous that you would do this to me, you cunt! And I'm taking it personally. Cunt!
And with a little ball, and the ball is actually the only antenna, so it's going off in a circle. It's shooting off billions and trillions of photons in all of these random directions, but the directions are always perpendicular to the surface of that little ball, right? So they are going out at angles to each other, and the speed at which those angles diverge means that to get the same number of photons, you got to have a bigger area. So it still dissipates.
The same rate as gravity and magnetism.
So what's dissipating is the number of
at
photons
the same rate
per square meter.
Yes.
Right? Not
gravitons, magnetons, photons.
So that's totally a geometric thing, and it's actually mathematically the same explanation mathematically why gravity and magnetism.
That's exactly what I said in the sentence.
And in fact, it's
exactly.
pretty easy to see that in a
exactly what the sentence says.
Space,
exactly.
If you have a 3-dimensional
exactly.
phenomenon, right?
It works in 2.
3-dimensional phenomena of emission from a point source or something close enough to a point source, you're creating a 2-dimensional surface, right? 2-dimensional surface. It's the surface of a bubble.
I mean, can you really believe this? He's going on and on about a statement that is totally uncontroversial, that he's in fact completely agreeing with. When you emit photons from a spherical source, he's giving you all these spherical examples, it does exactly what all the other straight line forces do. They're all straight line forces. Magnetism, gravity, photons. They're all move in straight line force mechanics. That's what they do. They radiate out in straight line vectors. That's why they all obey the inverse square. Fuck, they don't go around corners.
Soap bubble or something is a 2-dimensional surface, right? It's a 2-dimensional surface on that surface, right?
I mean, again, this doesn't make any difference. If I took a round ball or I take a circle like this, You can still get the idea. It radiates evenly all the way around. You get that, right? You don't need to make a tennis ball out of it to get that. It's the same diagram. It really isn't. You're really not degrading the concept at all by viewing it in 2 dimensions rather than 3. I don't mind you doing 3, but it's completely irrelevant because I said spherical. Spherical. I said ball. Sphere.
On the surface of the bubble, it's a 2-dimensional surface, right? And the radius is a 1-dimensional surface, right? So the radius is the distance of that, the current point of the surface of the bubble from the point of origin. And that radius gets bigger. It's a 1-dimensional thing. It gets bigger, and the amount, squared in the surface, the 2-dimensional surface, is going by that r squared, right? So that's why you have the r squared rule of dissipation, because it's dissipating as the surface gets thinner of this bubble.
Yeah. More easier example is just to point out the angle, right? It's this angle thing. Straight lines mean you have this angle problem. You see, and the angle is automatically creates the 4 times effect. The 45-degree angle does that all by itself.
Well, as it gets further and further away. Yeah, this is, so I don't even know, how long has this already been? Let's see.
21 minutes of absolute shit. Thank you very much, you fucking cunt. I hope someday to do you the return favor.
So it's already 21 minutes. So I guess if I go through other stuff, because there was just so many mistakes in here, and then there's this other one about the 2-slit experiment. I guess I'll comment on this real quick.
So just ignore the paper I gave about, the one I'm submitting, and now do the one that's not even finished. Brilliant again. Fuck.
Okay, it should be a known fact to all college-educated physicists that there is a single-slit interference pattern
Here we go.
that is identical to the 2-slit pattern, with the exception that the central maxima produced is twice the width and 4 times the intensity. That's entirely false. The interference pattern, Gary.
Okay, yeah, so he's never going to win this argument, okay? You're going to lose, Pyrrho, because that's the fact, all right? So you can play whatever games you want to play, do all of your bullshit. You're obviously in denial of fundamental, absolute fact. I'll show you the MIT lectures. I'll show you the Harvard lectures. I'll show you the motherfucking cunt Stanford motherfucking lectures, you fucking ignorant, stupid fuck. All right? And it's a fact. And using lasers only makes it more obvious, because frankly it changes that percentage. The central maxima still is wide, twice as wide, but the intensity is completely different, because now the bars are much more intense compared to the central maxima, because they're not using domed through an aperture light. Stupid cunt.
Is 2, right? 2 diffraction patterns. So when you put light or any wave through one slit, the way it's
okay, so he's just playing a game. Like now he's saying when you put any wave through one slit, it creates an interference pattern. So you don't need the 2 slits is really creating 4 slits worth of interference pattern, because each slit is creating its own interference pattern. That's his fucking inane, silly, crap, shit, completely made up argument.
Spreads out. Okay, that's diffraction, right? And if you put white light...
Diffraction with what? Like again, I mean, just, why don't you just deny what the image is even in the fucking... I bet you'll never get to the images in that paper. the simple image, showing you the single slit and then showing you the double slit. And the big difference is I can't see the lens in this camera right now. Single slit, I can see the lens. Double slit, I can't see the lens. Yeah, it's just that fucking obvious.
Or, you know, just like really noisy water with all of the frequencies in it.
I say right in the paper.
You would get a rainbow.
Water waves are not light.
Because different wavelengths of light get spread out to a different amount by a slit of a particular wavelength. Right? If you really want to spread light out, then...
Again, so he's just talking his jeebus. He's saying that when you narrow the slit, the photons can't get through, and they have all kinds of trouble because photons are big fat things. Okay, so you have a 100 nanometer, a 400 nanometer, a 500 nanometer slit, and the photon just can't get through. It's too crowded. Even though I could theoretically send 1 billion photons through that wide a space, we'll just pretend the photon can't get through, and it bends around the corner because it can't get through the slit. It's compressing the photon. No, what's happening is as the slits get closer, there's a magnetic and electrical charge between the physical objects, and those fucking electrons are diffracting the light. There is no interference pattern. The light is diffracted by the surfaces. But go ahead, preach your religion instead. You fucking creationist kook. Our God, our Pope says so. The Pope says so. That's all you are. You're a religious nut, and you're just saying, no, we don't evolve from monkeys. I don't care that you can't see the lens. That doesn't mean anything. This isn't anything about surfaces. No, surfaces don't do anything. Surfaces are flat. Photons bounce right off surfaces. There's no matter in there's no atoms on the surface, and there's no electrons on the surface. Surfaces are like oily and stuff. God says so.
The slit would be the width of the wave, or perfect multiple.
The length of the wave, right? So a radio wave, we could make a 3-mile slit, right? So we could take a radio photons, and we can make a 3-mile slit, and the radio wave will get stuck and have to go around the corner because the photons can't get through because they're 3 miles long. I mean, you can't tell the difference between the length of something and the width of something. So somehow, because the photons have a length, whatever their length is, that's how wide a surface they can get through without getting all funkied up. No, it has nothing to do with it. The narrower you make the slit, okay, you widen the projection. So if you merely bring the screen closer, you'll see that all the slits are still there. All the happening is still happening. It's just at a different focal range now. So you have to bring the screen of the projector closer and closer as you make the slit narrower and narrower. But the effect is still there. Obviously, less light gets through the narrower and narrower it gets, so the proportions will be lower. But the pattern is still just the same fucking pattern. It doesn't fucking goddamn change. You stupid fuck. Well, I mean, it changes in terms of the sizing. But again, that's a projection issue. If you bring it closer, the projection will balance out. You'll see the same pattern.
The width of the wavelength. That would spread that light out more. So other wavelengths not close to that would be spread out less. You get a divergence and the prism effect. You get a rainbow.
We're talking about monochromatic light. Now he's talking about rainbows. I mean, you know, what's the point, really? I'm talking about the single slit experiment. I'm talking about the double slit experiment. Traditionally argued where they never even mention single slit diffraction, and then they talk about double slit interference. I'm saying that's a canard and a lie because the pattern exists in the single slit. You do not have to speculate about which slit the fucking photon went through because quite obviously the pattern is created with no fucking slits. I mean, nothing in between. No choices to be made. The photon has no choice. It has to go through the single slit. In the single slit experiment, the photon has no choice. It goes through either slit A or slit A. Correct? retard. So why is it an issue in the double slit?
Right? That's the diffraction pattern. And if it's a laser with just one color of light, you get the diffraction pattern. The banding happens. And it spreads out. The light spreads out from the slit, and there's a banding kind of a pattern because of how that works. Okay. And the math is...
Yeah, right, because of how that works. Oh, don't even bring up the math, because yes, the single slit experiment just conveniently creates 2 photons. And that's what it really does. It just says, well, we're just going to divide by 3 and create 2 photons and do the math. That's all. So they just invent the second photon. They just invented a second photon. That's it. They invent it. They say this photon has a pair, another one that's right here, and that this one has another one that's right here, and this one has another one that's right here. And we're supposed to believe that. Because God says so. As interpreted by Pyrrho, the prophet.
Very accurate and predates quantum mechanics. It's part of wave mechanics, like people studying fluid dynamics came up with.
Yeah, right. Empty space is a fluid, and we all know it. Okay, sure it is. Sure it is. A fluid that doesn't move, doesn't do anything. It just provides you the opportunity to create energy when you need it, and then you dispose of it when you don't want it anymore, and you can make a bunch of fake dimensions anytime you want to, and then you make some dark matter anytime you want to. Fuck you, creeps. It's fucking science. This is disgusting. Well, I'm just saying, so this is the scientific method. This is the scientific... what do you call it? Disposition? No, there's another word for it. Temperament. This is the temperament of the scientific mind. His treatment of this paper. Oh, that's just fucking goddamn. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's a creationist mentality. That's all it is. My Pope says so.
The 2-slit pattern is 2 of those diffraction patterns overlapped.
So it's 4 diffraction
it's 2
patterns.
diffraction patterns overlapped. And the important...
Where did he get this from, right? None of the physicists are saying that, right? When any of the physicists draw the 2-slit experiment, they don't draw 4 diffracted patterns, do they? Has anybody seen that? Has anybody seen somebody do the 2-slit experiment as a diagram with 4 interference patterns? Has anybody seen that? Liar, liar. Yeah. You should be set on fire. Something like that. Fuck you, liar.
The part is that it's not 2 as if you superimposed one taken at one time over one taken at another time. No. The parts where one diffraction pattern has a high point in the wave.
Yeah, let's get what he's saying here. He's saying here now that a single photon approaches the double slit experiment and creates 4 new photon waves, right? 4 waves that do all their stuff, and then the photon ends up going wherever the math says so at the end. But there's 4 waves created now. 4 interfering waves created by one photon. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
The other diffraction pattern has a low point in the wave. They cancel out to 0. Right? It's not just the light of the bright one there. They cancel out to 0. So the interference pattern is the fact that there's 2 diffraction patterns in time and space at the same location of activity that interacts that way, even though you send one photon.
Oh, whatever. He's just making this shit up now, so what's the point? All right, I think I'll just do this in parts. This is stupid. Take a nap and come back to the rest. So maybe I'll just post this. Post the second half later. So anyway, sorry. But yeah, I will never speak to Pyrrho again. Fuck you. Yeah. fuck you in all the ways I can imagine you getting fucked. You piece of shit. Alright, I'm back. This is going to be a long video and it's pretty much crap. I think I'll make a video introducing the video, and then I increase the audio, and now the files won't combine, so anyway. So who knows what I'll have to do with this slop. It was a waste of time, though, unfortunately. Another colossal waste of time. Arguing about polarization, right? The only relevancy to the whole subject of polarization. Well, I should do that I'll do that in the beginning video.
There's this pattern of 2 diffraction patterns, 1 from each slit. And if you do 3 or 4 of the rest, then you'd have the interaction 3 or 4 in the rest. Right?
Right, and that's totally dependent on rigged math. So again, you want to pretend it's not rigged math, it's rigged math. It's basically just saying we're going to use this Huygens principle. We'll subdivide the distance by an arbitrary amount, depending on how many slits there are, and create a second photon and pretend that's what creates the phenomenon. It's engineered math.
The point is that the diffraction patterns are not only overlapped on the detector screen, but they're interacting in real time, even if you send one photon.
Well, whatever, they're interacting in real time. No, if you send one photon, there's absolutely nothing saying that the photon would randomly go either close to the slit or towards the center. And they have exactly the same proportional likelihood. So if I say the closer you are to a surface, the more likely it is that the photon will get diffracted, it's exactly the same principle. And so all we're really arguing about is why does it have a specific diffraction angle? Why doesn't it diffract at all the little in-between points? And the argument for that is that's because that's the mechanics of the size of the electrons, and the fact that they don't line up in ways that will allow you to do that. So they can't do it any other way. They'll only diffract where the spins of the electrons meet, so to speak. The photons only go through those pieces to be diffracted. So, I mean, the argument can be just made that, yes, it has to be at least another electron, you have to add another electron out to make this happen, and that only happens near the surface. Duh. So the tighter the slit, the more likely you're going to get more closer to the surface, where there's more likelihood of a deeper diffraction.
Photon through, or one electron, or one of whatever through at a time.
So again, I mean, I'm proposing an alternative explanation. He's arguing his explanation. So what's the point? I'm saying point out how my explanation doesn't work. You can't do that by saying my God is God. There's just I'm just saying it's fundamentally not going to work. So if you can't point out a flaw in what I'm saying, then there's just no point in telling me you already believe in Jesus.
Also say here that the fact that this result is not in any way duplicated in fluid wave mechanics is good reason to think the 2-slit results are just coincidental. They are. The overlap of 2 diffraction patterns from waves, well understood by wave mechanics. Essentially, the mathematics of inventing the concept of trigonometry, sine and cosine, turning...
Yeah, so he's saying there's single wave diffraction. So you open an opening, the waves come in, and they somehow diffract in some sort of similar way to the single slit experiment. And they don't. So, what can I say? The percentages are, I mean, there's a tiny bit of diffraction on the fringes, but I mean, you're talking about the central maxima being not just twice as wide, it's 1,000 times wider in water waves. But whatever. Okay, so, I mean, let's say it is true that it's the same diffraction pattern. Then there's still more reason to say, well, why are you making this big deal about two slits then? Why don't you just keep doing the single slit thing and marvel at your diffraction, your interference pattern? Why are you bothering with the two slits when you can get diffraction using one slit and one photon? Why are you wasting time with this two slit nonsense? Yeah, obviously because it doesn't work that way.
The circle into a two functions basically that interact, and looking at the cycles and the frequencies that working with sine or cosine waves create, you could calculate what you
Again, no one's denying they haven't got engineered math to do what they're doing now. I'm just saying that there are other explanations besides the photon doing this changing thing. And the explanation is that the surfaces of materials are not just flat surfaces. They're active surfaces. And those active surfaces are influencing the photons, because those active surfaces have things called charge. And that charge is realized in the arrangement of electrons. I mean, fuck. The thing photons more than anything else interact with, electrons. How coincidental.
Well, and also from just the wave mechanics of how diffraction works. Between those two things, the math and the observation.
Well, like I said, this isn't even, like I said, this wasn't a paper I've linked to. I mean, I linked to them in the document, but I haven't made videos saying because it's not finished. But, I mean, regardless. I mean, because they're never going to, you know, I realize that no matter what I say about all these different experiments, they're just going to keep saying, well, see, that's the Huygens principle. So, I mean, now that they have this catch where they can just call everything an interference pattern, you know, there's no point. I mean, I'm going to have to come up with some other argument.
You could see what water, if it goes through a slit, is diffracted. And you can do this in 3D. It's just...
well, why use the word diffracted? You're claiming it's an interference pattern. Why are you using the word diffracted? I mean, just make up your mind. It's either an interference pattern or it's diffraction. But there's no point in using those words interchangeably because they really don't mean the same thing.
Hard to see with your eyes. But you can't do this. Water waves underneath the surface go in 3D. When we're looking at the surface, we're seeing a cross-section of a 3D wave, right?
Well, why don't you do 3D light then? Why don't you have light going up and down and do 3D two-slit experiments? Fuck.
And, in fact, two overlapping diffraction patterns in water waves with two slits creates a pattern that matches what you expect. You're being ignorant to look at these...
Yeah, whatever. I'm the one... Yeah, you're the one who hasn't dealt with the single slit diffraction pattern in any way whatsoever. Go ahead, show the math. Go ahead and you illustrate... And I'm just saying, you're going to see them do the math, and in the math, what's different about the equation? Oh yeah, they take this fraction that they just made up and throw it in the equation and go 1/2. Here we go. Put that right in there. So now we've split the photon into two photons with that fraction. And now they can just make believe there were two slits. An invisible thin slit in the middle. They just basically put a slit in the middle of a non-defined... This is the tricks you can play in mathematics. This is all these whores for mathematics. This is where mathematics fails. Because mathematics allows them to do silly singularity shit where they take the whole universe and make it nothing, and it makes it possible for them to do silly shit where they create the non-wide slit in the middle, right? It's a slit, but it has no width. I mean, it's an impediment with no width. So they create a little magic thing they can shove right in the middle, and now we can do the two photon thing now. We can create two waves in the single slit. So, I mean, what? I'm supposed to... What do you want me to do? You want me to applaud how you're brilliant at three-card Monte or something? Or absolute bullshit? Because, frankly, it's absolute bullshit. It's not the same math. It's not the same equation. You've completely engineered the equation to produce the result. just like dark matter. It's an engineered solution to your mathematical dilemma.
The patterns of a single slit and of two slits and say, look, they're the same. They're not the same. If you look at them...
they are the same except for exactly what I pointed out, which is the central maxima is twice as wide and it's 8 times as intense, but technically it's only 4 times because each side of the width contributes 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. Durr. But that's it. That's the only difference. Narrow the center and it's the same pattern, shithead. Half on, half off. Half on, half off. Half on, half off. Half on. It's the same amount of off as there is on. Same pattern.
Closely enough, you will see...
the same exact pattern that's defined as Newton's rings on a lens. It's exactly the same thing. Double the thickness of the lens. Okay, so with each doubling of the thickness of the lens, it goes from full color to black. Full color, black. Full color, black. Full color, black. Full color, black. Same exact phenomenon. Now, why would that be? I think it has something to do with the arrangement of the molecules there, doesn't it? Yeah.
There are fingerprint differences between the two of them. And you obviously have not done that.
No, there aren't. So again, you want to keep saying there's a fingerprint difference. There isn't. There's an explicit distance of the black distance is technically the same thickness. The slits, obviously the brightness has the illusion of being wider than the black space, but the black space and the white space technically take up the same amount of space, a half a wavelength. I mean, fuck you. Exactly the same. If you put the same size slits as the 2 slit, in the sense that they're the same size as the 2 slits in the single slit, and use the same monochromatic light, you will have the same distance between the bars. At the same distance. Fuck you.
Blocked out your vision when you thought you were doing it, because the result of overlapping diffraction patterns and the interference pattern that results, where the 2 diffraction patterns interfere, is a feature of all wave mechanics. Any medium, any...
No, look, the difference is that when you do the 2-slit experiment, you have the central impediment, and that wipes out the bright central maxima. And it also, you have to understand that the projected light at a distance, right? You're projecting the light at distance. The light that's not diffracted goes straight. So it hits the target straight on. It doesn't get diffracted. So at a distance, it's hitting the center more than it goes anywhere else. It hits the very, very center. It all goes there, technically. And the same thing happens in the double slit, because the double slit is a tiny amount of distance, and especially at 20 feet or 5 meters or 10 meters, that distance is still the same imperceptible difference on the screen. So it narrows the central maxima, okay, because there's the amount of diffracted light, the non-diffracted light, is less, because now the surfaces are right in the middle of the light. But again, laser experiments are the ones that change this whole dynamic anyway. The fact that you idiots are using the same exact math for lasers and light produced by an aperture, which is coned light, demonstrates that you really haven't done this math. You really haven't done the math and then actually measured the thing on the wall. Quite obviously. Because the difference between those two kinds of light sources, a domed light, a coned light that's created by an aperture that the traditional experiment uses, and using lasers, which aren't coned and it's consistent all the way through, yes, it's a different pattern, actually. Not a different pattern. The intensities are clearly different. And that's why you can see the diffraction pattern so clearly in the single slit with a laser. Because the most intense light is at all areas of the opening. And so now the most intense light isn't going through the center. So more of the intense light is getting diffracted, obviously. fucked. I mean, this is fucking grammar school logic, for fuck's sake.
Wave, water or otherwise. Okay. It makes no sense at all. There's also the problem that single-slit interference makes... Look, there is no single-slit interference, Gary. That's called diffraction.
Yeah, okay, your distinction is bullshit, okay? Huygens is a diffraction pattern, asshole. I'm not the one saying it's an interference pattern. I'm saying there's no such thing as an interference pattern. I'm using the word interference as a concession to you assholes. Let me go read it, because he didn't read the whole damn sentence. Fuck. Because I don't mind correcting that. If I used the word diffraction when I should have just... I mean, if I used the word interference pattern without mocking it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm always trying to mock that principle. But let's see. I haven't formatted this document yet. So let's see. The fact that the result is not in any way duplicated in fluid wave mechanics. There is also a problem with single-slit interference. There is also the problem that single-slit interference makes conversations about what slit the photon traveled through in the two-slit experiment kind of ridiculous. Okay, so I used it correctly. They're claiming it's an interference pattern. Now they're saying that in the single slit it's not an interference pattern, it's somehow magically this thing called diffraction, and somehow that's a different thing. That's happening for a different reason. So that's what he just said, right? He said, no, it's a diffraction pattern. Somehow diffraction is different. So even though it comes out exactly the same, the bars are exactly the same distance, exactly the same bars, the only thing different again is that the central light is twice as wide and 8 times as bright. That's the only difference. The bars are exactly the same. He's saying that's diffraction. But when the two-slit experiment produces exactly the same thing, that's interference. Isn't that what he's just said? Isn't that gobbledygook? Yes, it is. I'll have to verify that it is, because everybody else is a lying scum. But obviously that's just plain garbage. He's making a garbage argument here. It's garbage.
The fact when a wave hits a barrier, with like a slit, or if it was water...
I mean, a wave hits a barrier. I mean, it's just such a crock of shit. It's a photon. It's no wave, asshole. It's a fucking photon.
You could have a seawall with an opening in it. When the water goes through there, it doesn't just get off.
Again, photons aren't water waves, so there's no point. Again, you won't concede. You won't allow your imagination to say, okay, I'm going to say, okay, I'll understand particle. I'll just forget about this wave shit for a minute. You just won't do it, so there's no point in having the conversation with you.
And make a straight thing, it makes a little cone. And the angle of how big of a cone it is, how wide of a cone.
Let's understand, when water goes through two openings, or an opening, any kind of opening, part of the reason why it creates a wave is because of the tension of the water, okay, the cohesion of the water molecules, and the fact that they slow down friction against the surface of the thing you're pushing the water through. So the wave is bent because it's still, the molecules want to stay together, the ones that are bound, they want to stay bound, but they sort of can't. They have to stretch because the ones at the end of the line are stuck rubbing against the surface. If there was no friction, the wave would just go right through the slits. So we have to now argue that in the two-slit experiment, photons not only have a wave, but they have wave mechanics that actually creates friction as they go through the slits, where they get stuck going through the slit, and the pieces of them are bending because they can't get through the slit fast enough. The wave of the photon can't get through it has friction as it goes through the slit. I don't think so.
cone it is depends on the wavelength of the water and the width of the slit.
And again, it doesn't matter. The only thing that stops you from making the slit tinier and tinier and tinier is that the amount of light gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the odds of diffraction get wider and wider and wider. So your pattern gets really wide. So you have to have your target very close. So you have to use, a magnifier of some kind to see your results, because you have to keep your target closer to the two slits because your pattern is tending to go so wide. But that's it. That's the only limitation. And if you do the experiments that way, if you do move the target in as you make the slit narrower, you'll see that the pattern is still the same pattern. It's just being projected at a wider angle. Fuck. If I take a movie and I have one size light bulb and I project the movie really wide, well, it's going to be kind of dim. But if I don't project it quite as wide, then it'll be more intense and bright. Gee, amazing.
And that's not an interference pattern. We call that a diffraction pattern.
What causes that diffraction? Let's hear it. What is the difference between that and the other thing in terms of the cause? What's causing diffraction? How exactly does diffraction get manifested? How is wave diffraction different than wave interference? Explain, please.
The interference pattern is when you have two such openings, the two diffraction patterns overlap.
All right. Well, clearly he hasn't paid any attention to what physicists are saying. Okay, he doesn't know what Huygens is, and he doesn't understand that that's not what they're arguing. They're not arguing that this diffraction. They're arguing that it's an interference pattern created by Huygens, the magical invisible slit that we put in the single slit to make the math work.
They interfere with each other, and that is what we call interference. So
again, I don't care what you call it. I'm just saying, if you're saying there's two different things causing it, explain the other thing. I haven't seen the description of how you make a diffraction happen. What gets diffracted and what is it diffracted by? Let me see that. So show me a diagram. Just draw the single slit and explain to me what's diffracting the light.
The slit has interference. The one slit has diffraction. The two slit has twice as much.
Okay. So does anybody hear that? I mean, he's telling other people they are ignorant and they are wrong, and that's the argument he just used. Now, please, show me diffraction. Show me a picture of diffraction that doesn't look exactly like your stupid interference bullshit. And if you show me a real picture of diffraction, what is the light goes close to the surface and the surface has forces that cause diffraction, well, then we're in agreement, aren't we? Yes. Surfaces cause diffraction.
Diffraction, but what's interesting is that it interferes. Why is that interesting? Because in the two-slit experiment, you can slow down the photons if you want so that only one Geiger counter...
Yeah, we all know this shit. Who cares? Do the one photon at a time with the single slit and you'll get the same pattern. Is there some doubt? Do you really think if they send one photon at a time, the pattern in the single slit's going to go away? I don't think so.
Is happening at a time. Click, photon, click, photon, click, photon. And why the fuck do you still see an interference pattern of two overlapping diffraction patterns?
I wish it was like patronizing AIDS. You know, like you'd get AIDS if you're too fucking patronizing. You'll just automatically get AIDS or something. Fuck you. I mean, fuck you.
When one particle was going through one slit at a time and making one dot of light on the detector at a time.
Right, so there's another lie, right? So that's a lie. That didn't happen, right? This does not happen. If they do this single slit and send photons through one at a time, it doesn't create some sort of just a thing here, no pattern. No, it creates a diffraction pattern. It creates the same pattern that's created in the double slit experiment, except the central maxima is twice as wide and 8 times as dense. I mean, this is just fucking bullshit. She doesn't even know the science here. That's the lie that's been told forever, that if you have a 2-slit experiment and I put detectors on it, then just blobs show up at the other end. No. No. Not true. Lie. Doesn't happen.
And you can watch the detector ding, ding, where the single particle photon goes. That gives reality to the single particle photon. But how an interference pattern shows up, that's not explained. And your idea?
Well, again, you're still... All right, so any honest observer, have you heard him explain the single slit diffraction pattern anywhere in this crap? Have you? No. Okay. Until he does that, this is all such a big fucking pile of lie.
That it's the same, the diffraction? You think we haven't fucking noticed that? That's not even a high science thing. In my undergraduate physics, I've done the math. The interference pattern of 2 overlapping diffraction patterns interfering with each other.
Yeah, whatever. They're not there's overlapping diffraction patterns. So he's taking now he's calling them overlapping diffraction patterns. So now the story is the 2-slit creates 2 diffraction patterns, and then the 2 diffraction patterns interfere with each other. Well, what caused the diffraction? I mean, this is just such convoluted nonsense.
It's different from one diffraction pattern just being itself.
Look, the difference, as I've explained, is only in the central maxima. The intensity of the central projected light. And in the double slit experiment, it's less bright and less wide. And that's it. End of the difference.
It's so beyond controversial. You know, if you cannot accept that, there's no way to take...
Yeah, no. If you can't be fair to the argument that's been made and the images that are in the fucking paper, this is the difference between the double slit experiment, okay? I can't see the lens on the camera. Alright, so if that's the light source and I'm the target, quite obviously the most intense light is now not reaching the target. The center light doesn't reach the target. That's the 8 times difference in intensity. The central impediment wipes out the center light and maximizes the probability of surface diffraction by putting 2 surfaces right in the fucking middle. That's the explanation. I mean, you can't be too retarded to understand that explanation and say, well, yes, okay, that's a valid... You could say, well, damn it, that's a pretty fucking good argument, but I still want to believe in my Jeebus. You could do that at least. But to tell me this is not a good argument, that this argument doesn't mean anything. No, I think it's a pretty substantial motherfucking fact that the most intense light is blocked in the 2-slit experiment. I think that's a significant reason why the center light would be 8 times less bright. I think that's a very good reason. Considering that the center impediment is often as wide as the 2 slits, so it's actually taking up 1/3 of the light's surface area. So understand the 2-slit experiment is the central impediment is as wide as the 2 slits. So you're blocking 1/3 of the light, technically, right in the center.
take you seriously because it's clear. You just don't understand the concept, and it is understandable. You don't have to be a educated physicist. This is something that
again,
a natural
right.
could make sense of. Even
Yeah. Get patronizing, Cancer. I mean, it's just disgusting. You patronizing cunt. It's disgusting. You're full of shit. Your explanation is absolute crap. Any physicist, real one, is going to say, well, Pyrrho, yeah, you made a motherfucking cunt mess out of that. How dare you? Oh, you're just disgusting. Fuck you. I mean, that's all you can say, right? I mean, this ignorant cunt is telling me that I don't understand this experiment. I've done more research on this motherfucking cunt, useless piece of shit, motherfucking shit experiment, this creation science motherfucking shitty experiment that destroyed physics. I've done more research on it than fucking anybody on YouTube. So don't tell me I don't understand, asshole.
Without doing all of the math. It's one diffraction pattern. The interference is when there's two of them, and the importance of...
Look, you know, the math is a canard, okay? There's absolutely no reason. They don't have to do all this Pythagorean geometry math. I mean, it's all just a contrivance. All they need to know is how wide the slits are, how wide the central impediment is, and how far the target is, and the wavelength of the light. And it'll dictate your outcome. Those are the variables. You put in enough variables, you'll get out the output. No, I'm not denying the fact that there's this there's a built-in probability, and the probability is being caused. My argument is what's causing it. You're saying it's built into the photon. I'm saying no, it's quite obviously built into the surfaces. The surfaces are causing the diffraction.
That is only important because how can you have interference between patterns masked out by two slits when there's one photon going through one or the other of the slits at any given moment?
Because the fact is the one single photon is going to be, by probabilistic rules, diffracted. There's no magic about this. One photon goes through one slit, was close to the slit, so it gets diffracted a lot. It goes through the middle of the slit, doesn't get refracted much. It goes through the other slit, gets diffracted a lot. Goes through the other slit, diffracted too much. There's nothing about this there's nothing magical about single photons when you understand that surfaces are causing the phenomenon. The fucking single photon thing only means something if you're one of your lunatics who think the fucking thing is a wave interference pattern. That's your problem. It's not a liability of somebody who believes in particles. It's a liability of somebody who believes photons are fucking waves. I mean, the single photon dilemma is your dilemma. It's not a fucking dilemma if somebody believes in a mechanical... believes in is logical enough to understand that the surfaces are causing the fucking phenomenon. That surfaces, depending on how close you come to them, will diffract you a different amount. They have electrons surrounding them, and the photons will interact with the electrons.
That's the part that's like, what? Right?
No, it isn't.
But you do not explain. None of this theory of yours seems to address that. You're in denial from the beginning. Then
you're such a lying piece of shit. I mean, I don't know how I can how can I blueprint this any clearer for you? I mean, how do I say it any clearer? What kind of picture do I have to draw? I mean, like I said, I got the damn picture sitting there. I mean, it's too complex for you? You can't look at a goddamn picture? Let's find the, I guess it's this one. Oh, my browser's crashing. Uh-oh. Probably bad timing to be jumping around here. Yes. Alright, well, I guess we'll have to just entertain for a minute. Sing songs and such and wondering blah 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 do da 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 da. Oh, I'm fucked. Damn it. I want to be done with this. Come on, browser, you can do it. Come on, baby. Come on. It's trying. it's got the other paper here with the magnetism, which was the really important thing that Pyrrho just ignored. Ugh. I mean, I blueprinted magnetism, and he completely ignored it. Just fuck that. That's not significant. You blueprinted magnetic attraction and repulsion. No, that's not significant. I'm just going to ignore that and argue a subject where you're totally stupid. Oh, this is terrible. Well, it just isn't going to happen. Let's see if I can get back to Pyrrho. Yeah, I can. Okay, so see if I can finish this.
You go off on how it really is without ever addressing your system is not going to deal with the reality you have already denied.
Deal with the reality I have already denied. I mean, amazing statement.
If you think I should go into this shit more, or if you
no,
like
don't bother. Really, just don't bother, you fucking cunt.
Comments,
yeah, just go fuck yourself until dead, you stupid, useless prick. God, fuck you.
These,
fuck
but, you know, they're all out there. I can't keep up with all of it. But, you know, I think some physical education might be in order, especially for in Mendham. But
physical education?
You know, think,
what, jumping jacks?
You know, the least of it is Hythlodae's cavalier about, you know, assuming determinism, because old Gary agrees, so he's arguing with Gary, so he gets away with that. You know, there's things like that. But there's also other mistakes and misstatements, in my opinion. If you're interested in that, leave a comment. If you're interested in me, for example,
doing an honest diagram would be nice, but you're a dishonest cunt.
I did have the intention.
Show me single slit diffraction. Show me it.
On the other hand, you know, I sort of spent the energy that had built up, and I feel like I've addressed it sufficiently. So, feedback is appropriate in this particular case. All right, having said that...
Feed on that, fucker. Feed. Do you feel the energy of that arrow, buddy?
I do. And from my lofty loft in very northernmost Maine, claim only applies to United States residents, now valid in other continents.
Yeah, freeze to death.
Or even nations if you're Canada.
Fucking snowing here, really irritating. I mean, it's winter, so yeah, it's gonna snow. I was hoping to have a snow-free winter. You know, a probabilistic unlikelihood, but I was still hoping. Alright, so we're done with this. I don't know, there's still stuff here. I don't know if that's his fault. It's only 2 minutes of stuff. Yeah, maybe
I have the intention. I could still
read. Here we go. Go back.
You know, assuming more, or if you would like to hear about Hythlodae's mistakes, please leave comments, leave links to the videos you would like me to comment on. Having said that,
okay, now this is my fucked up video. Okay, so he's done. Alright, well, goodbye. Fuck you and such. You suck. Yeah. So yeah, I won't have a live conversation with him until he's dead, and then I'll piss on his grave. Fucker. Jesus Christ. Slandering fucker. But yeah, so much to all you assholes who say write a book. This is what they'll do to it. There's no point in writing a book. It's like Dawkins' Selfish Gene book, right? People couldn't even deal with the title. You know, they book smook. You know, they couldn't even figure out what they couldn't deal with any part of it. You know, rationally. All right, so we're done. Yeah, so I'm making a little short video to say don't watch this video. So I'll make a little opening to this video just saying this is a waste of time. This Pyrrho science is shit. He doesn't make a rational argument and didn't even deal with the most important part of the document, for fuck's sake. It's about the subject of magnetism. He just ignored it entirely. I mean, there was the 2 slit pictures. Damn, I should have kept that, right? Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I tried to switch windows again. Okay, there it is, the magnetism. I mean, this is the biggest part of this paper, is the diagram of the mechanism of magnetic attraction and repulsion. And he just fucking ignored it. Ignored the force of gravity, just ignored all of this stuff. There was just no point in me writing any of this, because he just didn't pay any attention. And what did he waste time on? Arguing about what exactly polarization is. And say, look, I made this such a generic statement. They have a shape expressed as polarization. I mean, what if I said they have a condition expressed as polarization? Then, what, a whole half hour of his video wouldn't be necessary? Yeah. That's the fucking point. It's just so disappointing. What are you going to do? I mean, there's just, people have no character or integrity. They just suck so bad. I mean, really, I'd want somebody to just pull out a shotgun and blow my fucking head off if I did what he just did to this. If one of these the people I think are assholes on the, I mean, I watched Warble on a lot doing the magnetic thing, and I felt really good that, yeah, somebody's doing this stuff, you know. I mean, I knew it was a waste of time, and he knows it too, but, you know, he did this stuff where, yeah, let's see if we can do this perpetual thing, and he, you know, did all this engineering of magnets on the wheel and tried to figure out some way to make this wheel go to spin more because it had magnets on it. And yeah, he really didn't get anywhere. But and he explained why. But I'm just saying, yeah, that's something to encourage. And even if he thought it was possible, perpetual motion was possible, and he, you know, with this pointless ragging. Like I said, I rag on Warbles on a lot for saying 25% of a car's fuel burn has something to do with turning an alternator. I mean, that's just fucking crazy. Yeah, I got a 400 horsepower engine, and it sucks up 150 horsepower to run my headlights. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. That sounds crazy. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, there's just no point. This is just so... I need a real physicist to argue with. I'm not somebody who's going to say something silly like, well, the single slit is diffraction. And diffraction's entirely different. Because I said so. Such. Anyway, okay. Enough. Wait, it's more than enough. Yes, I agree.